What is going on, guys? Something different today. I'm going to talk about why I'm a contrarian sometimes in the firearms world, why I kind of buck trends, why I think that's useful, why I don't take money from gun and ammo companies or sponsors or free stuff or shill. You shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. I don't do that because God says not to do that. But on a broader sense, my takes on pushing back on some of the trends that I see that maybe are not all out lies, but are what I perceive as misleading. That said, if you're not a normal listener and you don't normally hear those views, you probably want to skip today. Probably not the best marketing on my part, but I'm not here to get rich. I'm here to tell you what I think is the truth. So with that, welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way with God Almighty at the center, biblical, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about my views on several different issues, and it's going to tie into one big mega theme. We'll talk about the micro and then into the macro. Okay, I've been doing this podcast, 6-7 years, maybe more, I don't know, a long time. And I was talking about, this is one example, I was talking about lever actions a long time ago, what they brought to the table as a survival option. Yes, they are not as alarming to hoplophobes, people that are afraid of weapons. They're not as off-putting as an AK-47 to many people. They have a reasonable rate of fire. They are an archaic, in my opinion, complicated machine, but they have been worked out and they have been, proven to be fairly reliable. And I was saying that long before they were the hot thing that a bunch of gun pushers were pushing. A bunch of the gun tube glitterati were pushing. Not that many years ago, they were a small niche. Like, you had guys that hunted with them because that's what they hunted with and what their pap hunted with and what their pappy hunted with. With a, Marlin 336 35 Remington. Or they got one for their kids because they wanted their kids to hunt with what they started out hunting with. Or that's just what they had because it was passed down. You get the idea. Or you had the guys that just wanted the L.A.P.D John Wayne. Even though in real life, Merriam, had a bolt-action Weatherby for hunting. But anyway, you had that small niche group of dudes. And really nobody was talking about lever guns except for that small niche. Outside of that niche, nobody was clamoring for 4570. And then you started getting this concerted effort of this regurgitation in the gun tube glitterati of lever action, and somebody else picked it up and chewed on the cud. Ooh, lever action, so cool. Let's put rails on it. Let's put M-lock on it. And, okay. So now I'm looking at this thinking, there are a lot of guys that don't have first-hand experience with guns that are looking at this thinking that this is a good tactical option. That they may be bamboozled into thinking that, a lever action with M-lock rails is going to go toe-to-toe with an AK-47. And it's just not. It's just, if you look at it soberly and circumspectly, it's just not. It's not a battle rifle. It hasn't been since 1879. It's not that. It was pretty much obsolete when Mauser came out with their guns in the 1890s, which is why we never mass adopted one. Yeah, you might see some old pictures of cavalry carbines and stuff for the old Henrys, but they were never mass adopted by our military or anybody else because they were pretty much obsolete when a good strong bolt action was designed by Mauser and many others. You can get mad at that if you want, but it's just a way more complicated esoteric design. It happened to overlap with our expansion and manifest destiny of the West, which is a cool period in American history, but that's history. If you want it for history, that's a great reason to have a lever action, but don't throw a bunch of M-lock on it and expect a lever action 4570 to go toe-to-toe with even a good scout rifle, let alone a modern battlefield rifle. It's just not going to do that. So I push back on that because I see the ridiculousness. I often rag on Glocks. Now, I do that because they're such a giant portion of the market, and so many people just think they're the best thing ever, and they just drink the Glock Kool-Aid as if it was served up by Jim Jones and they were at a party. They just guzzle down. Give me more of the Glock Kool-Aid, Glock perfection, Glock. And I see that and I'm like, oh. Okay, well, let's look at the other side of that. I push back on that because they're not that good. They're okay. They're perfectly adequate for a general purpose cop. And I was a cop. And I've worked regular patrol and I've worked more specialized assignments. But the actual general purpose cop is not a gunfighter. You can get mad at that if you want, but this is a former cop telling you that. They're not. They're administrators. They're clerks. They will spend exponentially more hours with a pen or behind a keyboard or behind a screen than they ever will behind a gun. Now, you get into some more specialized assignments, and that may change. Tactical teams, fugitive recovery, things like that. But the vast majority of everyday cops, which is a hard job, they're not gunfighters. For that, if you just want a gun to check a box and you're a bureaucrat and you want a cheap gun that's going to last their 20-year career that they're probably never going to use in a real-world scenario other than just having in their holster for intimidation, and you just want to check that box of something that will go bang and throw a bullet in a general direction with a minimal amount of training, yeah, a Glock will do that. Which is one of the reasons they're so mass adopted by law enforcement, because Glock gives them a giant deal when they buy them for law enforcement, thinking that the average Joe will think, oh, cops, they know what they're doing, whether that's true or not, and they'll buy Glocks at full price. Genius marketing. And if that's what you want, a gun that a general purpose cop carries to check a box, that you want something that will go bang probably and throw a round in a general direction of where you want it to go, hey, Glock's great for that. So I try and bring balance there and look at it soberly. Glock's not the best gun ever. It's not probably even in my top 10 of even polymer striker fires in 2025. But it's a decent gun. And it will go bang. So if that's what you're looking for, just look at it soberly and circumspectly, without the Kool-Aid, without the Glock Colt. Is this the best gun for you? Maybe yes, right? Maybe yes. If you want a gun to throw in a porta potty and get it a month later and expect it to go bang, you know, an old Gen 3 Glock is probably it. If you want something with good ergonomics and a good trigger, it's probably not it. If you want to actually be the best that you can be with a handgun, it's probably not it. And you could make it if you do a bunch of modifications to it, but then we're not comparing apples to apples. So anyway, that's another example of, you know, why I kind of push back. Another one, high BC bullets. You know, if you don't have a bullet of 0.5 or higher BC, the deer are just going to laugh at you. You might as well just put your gun in your case and go home with your tail between your legs, because how could you ever possibly kill a deer unless your bullet has a 0.5 BC or better, which is ridiculous. The vast majority of people live east of the Mississippi. I don't, but the vast majority of people do, and the vast majority of people hunt white-tailed deer, and they do it inside of 200 yards. BC, unless you go to the ridiculous, unless you go back to that 1870s 45-70, you know, if you're comparing a pointed bullet to a pointed bullet, the difference in a 0.4 BC and a 0.5 BC and even a crazy high 0.6 BC, the difference is academic. It's ridiculous. Now, everybody's pushing, not everybody, a big chunk of the, you know, GunTube glitterati and influencers and pushers are pushing and pimping these high BC bullets like you need them. And the vast majority of people don't. Now, to look at it with balance, some people do. If you're shooting super long range, right? If you're shooting past 800 yards the majority of the time, or even if a significant minority of the time, yeah, 6.5 Creedmoor gives you an advantage over 308 in that category. It certainly does. But is that you? Are you doing even a significant minority of your shooting past 800 yards? Again, most people live east of the Mississippi. Most people east of the Mississippi have a hard time finding a place to shoot out to 400 yards, let alone 800 yards. So look at it soberly. Now, 6.5 Creedmoor is a great round. It's great for whitetail deer hunting, but usually because it's going to give you, in a light handy rifle, less recoil, and it's got plenty of energy to kill a whitetail deer. I don't care what you say. You know, if the 6.5 Creedmoor offends you because you think it's going to give you a man bun and make you drink soy lattes, it's not. Call it the 260 Hornady improved. It's a modern version of a 6.5x55. It's a decent round, and it's plenty enough for whitetail. But don't think that you need it because it has higher BC bullets. You just don't. Get it for other reasons. Get it because the ammo is readily available. Get it because it gives you less recoil than a light handy rifle. Get it for a bunch of other reasons, but don't be bamboozled into thinking that you need a .5 or higher BC bullet. You don't in the majority of situations. So there's another example. You guys know I'm a big proponent of the shotgun. I like the shotgun. I don't particularly like shooting, several boxes of 12 gauge slugs in a day, but I love the shotgun for its versatility. It's the most versatile small arm that we have in 2025, in the 21st century, period. It's the most versatile. Nothing else can take a dove out of the air and stop a bear that's charging and take down an elk and be great for home defense. Nothing else can do that. The shotgun can do all those things. Many things can do each one of those things, but the shotgun can do all of those things. I'm a big proponent of that, and I'm saying that because not a lot of people are. People will spend thousands of dollars on a Gucci gun, like, I want a handgun with a suppressor for home defense, when, which would cost you what, for a decent handgun, a decent suppressor, $2,000 or better, when a $200, or with inflation, with post-COVID money, maybe $300 to $400 would get you a good pump shotgun with buckshot, which is a way better home defense weapon than a handgun with a suppressor. Argue with that if you want, but it's probably because you want it to be true, not because it actually is true. If you look at the actual, somebody's trying to kill you, you probably want a buckshot with slugs over a handgun with a suppressor. It's apples and oranges. Now, if suddenly everybody starts telling you need a shotgun for everything and you don't need every other gun, I'll push back on that and say, hey, the shotgun's great, but it's not a battle rifle. It's not a SCAR-17. And if you need something that a SCAR-17 would be needed for, like an actual battle against, paratrooping zombie North Koreans, then yeah, I probably want a battle rifle for that. I probably don't want the shotgun. The shotgun is the most versatile, but it's not the best for everything. So I'd even push back on that if we get to that point, because I try and look at guns soberly and circumspectly. As somebody that's been a professional gunfighter most of my adult life, see the bio link in the show notes, but if you're a regular listener, you probably know, whatever, call it whatever you want, gun for hire, mercenary, journeyman, gunfighter, whatever you want to call it. I've been that most of my adult life, and I look at guns practically. I love them for their beauty. I love them for their history. I love them for their role in, the shaping of the world that we have today. I love them for allowing me to turn money into skill and project force. I love them for all those reasons. But I looked at them practically as tools, as somebody that, puts on jungle boots, a war belt, body armor, and that's a primary breadwinning job still. And I've joined the Marine Corps when I was 17, and I'm in my 40s. I look at them for their practical application. And again, if you want to just collect a lever action because you love the history, go for it. But don't have the wool pulled over your eyes into thinking that it's a battle rifle in 2025. Can you kill something with it? Yeah, I can kill somebody with an N.R.A. spoon. That doesn't make it a great tool. That doesn't mean it's better, than a firearm. So look at it soberly and put down the Kool-Aid, put down the marketing hype, and just look at it. And if you want to buy something just because it's the next cool hot thing, great. But make sure that's why you're doing it. If you have a good basic battery of good survival firearms, and you see, a Swiss straight pull 7.5 Swiss, and you're just like, that's a really cool gun. I like the mechanics of it. I want to get it because it's cool. Rock on, man. I'm not your wife. You don't have to justify your gun purchases to me. Get it, but get it because it's cool. Don't get it pretending it's you're gonna go toe-to-toe with an AK-47. Get it for that reason, but don't pretend that it's something that it's not. And I guess that's the main theme of what I wanted to get across today. I hope I articulated it properly. Guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate all that you do. Something as a tactical tip, if you did stick through that rant, something we would do when I was in law enforcement, if you get a gun that's just, nasty, ridden hard and put away wet, just filthy. One of the things you can do is get like a small Tupperware container and soak a part that's metal. I wouldn't do this with wood, but a part that's metal, like a slide or something that's just gross. You can soak it in simple green. If it's really bad, maybe soak it overnight. Again, probably don't want to do it if it's a fine antique collectible firearm with like a color case hardened finish. But you get something like a Glock slide that's had thousands and thousands of rounds to it and hasn't been cleaned, and maybe you can't get some parts out, you can soak it in simple green. Come back and hit it with a wire brush. And for really nasty stuff, that can be a good technique. Again, not for a collector item, not for something you care about the cosmetic appearance of it, but that's a good tip. If you get something that's really nasty, maybe even rusty, that's been seized shut, you could try soaking it in simple green, try soaking it in WD-40, and then, switching it back and forth. But that's a good tip. Your tactical verse of the day, because that's more important than all the gun talk. Because you can win 100 gunfights, but if you die and go to a lake of fire, what was it all for? Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Men, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.